Went to an HHS session out at the college years ago when Tom Hansen was still our senator. They had a listening session after people would get from state money. So I went out there and you had to sit down and identify yourself. Said my name's Ed Reeker. I grew up over at Eustis on a farm. Every October, Dad weaned the calves. They bawled about a week. I got it. One sat down.
Got the cough board.
Tom
section
Hansen
over it.
got a grin on his face from ear to ear.
You need to stop hanging up.
All about a week.
I heard he had some grandkids home over there.
Pete is out.
Maybe they wore him out.
Somebody sent me a text the other day that said, if my aunt had one, she would be my uncle. You know, that's pretty simple.
No kidding, that is.
I don't know if Brad would understand it, though. You might not know what I'm going to tell you.
I don't even know if I want to know.
Shut your mic off.
They sent me a text the other day.
Starting late tonight. I said we're starting late.
See, I told you you wouldn't get it.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the North Platte City Council meeting here on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. Of course, we're here in the City Council chambers calling the meeting to order. Our invocation is by Cameron Landy of the Salvation Army. Cameron?
I invite you into a word of prayer this evening. Father God, it is with gratitude that I approach your throne on the behalf of those who are present and on the behalf of those who are absent, but maybe that are on our minds this evening. Lord, with a grateful spirit that you have given me the opportunity to serve under the leadership of a city, Lord, who places a very special emphasis on acknowledging your presence. Father, I pray that as the conversation is had and as the next several moments, Lord, that your Holy Spirit would speak directly to our hearts and directly to our minds as a collective and as individuals. Lord, I pray right now that the conversations over the next several moments would be fruitful and would be glorifying to your kingdom. I pray right now, Lord, that you would go before us, come behind us, and walk alongside us in every circumstance as we move forward and have these discussions. We thank you, Lord. I praise you and I pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cayman. I think I called you Cameron. I apologize. I did not read the bifocal failure. Hate to admit it, but that's what it was. Roll call, please.
Nestle,
Here.
Kyle,
Here.
Bowles, Lucas,
Here.
Garrett,
Here.
Flanders,
Here.
Rieger,
Here.
Wood.
Here.
Thank you. Meeting procedure, the Open Meetings Act. Current copy of the Open Meetings Act of the state of Nebraska is posted on the wall at the back of the council chambers. Meeting procedure, the public may address specific agenda items at the pleasure of the mayor. If recognized by the mayor, please identify yourself by stating your name and your address. Please address the council through the mayor and limit your remarks. We respect our city employees and request that any complaints or criticisms of employees not be aired in a public meeting. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or the mayor. Individuals in violation will be declared out of order. Consent agenda. All matters under the consent agenda are considered by the city council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Any city council member may, however, remove an item from consent by request. Item number 1A, approve the minutes of March 19th, 2024. 1B, approve sending the application of El Mojito LLC for a Class 1 liquor license on sale only located at 510 East Phillip Avenue, Suite 1 to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission with no recommendation. 1C, send application of AS Brew LLC DBA Ape Ship Brewing for a Class 1 liquor on sale only for their location at 520 North Dewey Street to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission with no recommendation. Item D, send the application of TBS Liquors NP LLC DBA The Bottle Shop for a Class D liquor off sale only for their location at 514 South Jeffers Street to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission with no recommendation. Item E, approve the mayor's appointment of Sonia Wojcicki as alternate member of the Board of Adjustment. Item F, place on file treasurer's report for February 2024. Item G, adopt the recommendation by the City Planning Commission for preliminary and final approval of Centennial Park 11th subdivision located south of Leota Street between South Oak Street and South Willow Street.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Nisley. Calling the question on the consent agenda, please. Mark, it looks like your clicker didn't take there. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Consent agenda is passed. Excuse me. We have the typical array of cough drops up here in the city hall today. All right. Regular agenda. Item number 2. Approve the agreements with Spawn Ranch, Inc. of Los Angeles, California for the design build delivery method with a skate park relocation and authorize the mayor to execute the contract documents.
I move to approve the agreements with Spawn Ranch, Inc. of Los Angeles, California, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract documents.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Flanders. Okay, before we get started, Lyle, do you want to tell us what we're talking about up here a little bit, please?
Mayor, City Council.
Hey, Lyle, would you make sure that microphone is on? Is a red
is
light on?
on.
Okay, thank you.
It is on. Can you hear me now? All right. Okay. All righty. First part of March, this council passed the resolution to go ahead and contract or go out and request for proposals for various skate park companies to build a skate park, which was part of our tax initiative that we had passed back in to do the rec center and the water park and as well as the skate park. Since that was passed, we went ahead and drew up a request for proposal, sent it out to about 12 companies throughout the United States, and we had a response of 3. Since then, we have, and that RFP went out February 27th. We did receive those 3, and the proposals were due at March 25th. I'm sorry, the February 27th was the time we sent it out. But the design build team selection happened on the 28th, which consisted of city engineer, recreation superintendent, park and rec director, and 2 council members. And so we sat down in an afternoon. I handed out some score sheets to weigh out the differences of each of the companies. They were all very good. They certainly were. It was kind of hard to decide, but we came up with one good one. The one that stood out was Spawn Ranch. The difference we felt was the fact that they had a great site selection process, that they've done this quite a bit and work with the people. And they also had some great designs too. They were using colored cement rather than just having a gray blob out there. So it'd be colorful, and they were willing to work with us. their percentage on design was right around 7%. So we felt that was a good percentage, and so that'll give us a lot more money to do the construction of it too. So and then their completion date was going to be May of 25, where some of the other ones had a lot of projects going on, and there'd be a later date on that. So going through the selection process, we weighed out the things, like key personnel qualifications, project experience with similar projects, specific approach and work plan, design build fee proposal, and a proposed schematic. So this is what we come up with. I think it was fairly unanimous with the committee on who we were going to pick. And so we're excited to bring on Spawn Ranch to help us out with this. Now, the next step will be to invite them, after contracts are signed, invite them to come in, have a lot of public input. We have a design build review committee that will run past a lot of this stuff and see where they're coming from with it. So we'll utilize that committee in their capacity too. And then once all that input is done, then there'll be some things like age group demographics decided, their type of experience will be looked at, because we want the skate park to have different levels of talent, that they can utilize. One end might be for the little wee ones that are just starting out to the most advanced, and so this is what we're going to be looking at in this kind of thing. And so I believe that's probably about it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Lyle while he's up there? Go ahead.
Where this project, my recollection is that there's a portion of this project that has private fundraising aspects. So how does the logistics work on that? So the city would contract with the design builder, and then obviously those parties will have a lot of input on the design part and all that through the public process. But then does their money go to certain aspects of the project that they choose, or do they give the city the money and trust that we'll do what they like with it? Or how does that all work together?
It could probably work either way, actually. Our understanding is that the majority of the money is sitting in Mid-Nebraska Foundation at this point. And as you are aware, the foundation requires a letter from those that get to decide, from anyone who's maintaining the money, as to what the appropriate use is. So to this point, we have felt like negotiating as a whole. So we have I think the amount that's sitting in Mid-Nebraska is 165,000 or so, something like that. We thought about trying to use about 150 of it, so there is some money left there. Of course, that's not entirely our decision, but we thought maybe that would be the logical proposal. That way, the entire skate park spend is around 650,000 without any additional funds. And then the general design would be agreed upon by the group that Lyle is discussing, and Shay, who's sitting in the audience, is leading. And once that agreement exists, then we would gain approval from Mid-Nebraska to spend whatever amount of money that group feels is appropriate, and adjust the sizing of the skate park accordingly.
Okay, that makes good sense. Thank you.
Anything for Lyle? Lyle, looks like you can sit down.
Thank you.
We reserve the right to call you back, as always, though. We had some comments from some folks in the community who might want to say something about this project. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to say something? Sir, if you'd come up to the microphone, tell us your name and your address, please.
My name is Pete Lowe, 2408 West 4th Street,
Thank you.
and I have the same cough that you have. Sorry.
I've got a cough drop here if you need one, okay?
I have one also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Give you about 5 minutes, Mr. Lowe, please.
Thank you. I have a question about the amount of money that is being spent on this study. My feeling is, do we not have enough people with local input that we could do this at maybe a tenth of the amount of money that the council is ready to spend? I do not agree with that amount, $650,000 going to California. In due respect, has Mr. Menschel been to Grand Island? Has he been to other communities to see what they have done? Do they have skate parks? And you have checked into it. Okay, that'll settle that. But I personally am opposed to spending $650,000 to someone from California. That does not say too much for our local integrity, and I know that it is here. Unfortunately, at 81 years old, I'm not a skateboarder. But I've lived in North Platte since 1963. And I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of what I considered wasted money. This, to me, is the number one waste of our local money going to those people. Why can't we get the skateboard people, get them all together and say, draw us up something what you want, and then we'll bring it back to the city council, and perhaps more people like me, as an outsider, would be more than willing to accept it. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Anyone else? Brent, would you describe this process kind of from start to finish from the engineering perspective, please?
Good evening, council, mayor. Brent Berkland, city engineer. To kind of dovetail on to what Mr. Minchell was talking about, the process is the design build process. So in the total cost, Lyle mentioned roughly 7%. So you're about 50,000 is design. And the design involves the creative aspect, knowing some of the technical details on skate parks. I'm not familiar with skate park details, but you get into some of the national associations as far as slopes, radiuses of bowls, heights, things like that, and then based on age parameters. Those are some of the expertise that you need, partly to have it designed according to standards that minimizes liability to the city. And so that's some of the expertise that you're hiring. And of the 650,000, roughly 7% is the design part. The remainder is construction. And it's unfortunately, construction costs have gone up a lot. And so you're looking at probably, just real quick napkin math, you're going to have about 600,000 for construction and or features. If there's elements that you buy, if there's certain pieces that you buy for it. So you have about 600,000 roughly for the construction part. So that would be roughly the breakdown. So in the design build process, what we'll do is identify a site, and then after the site's identified, then lay out what is the shape, what is it going to look like, how tall, how big of a footprint. And then we will further go along with once we get that identified, then we'll proceed with the construction. So does that help as far as what you're thinking, as far as breaking up a little bit of the cost? And in the engineering architecture world, 7% of a project like that is, I would say, normal, typical. There's structural concrete involved with this. They're going to have reinforcing. There's elements that look like a pool. That's what it kind of looks like, is a rounded pool. You have to do structural concrete to make that work and hold up. So there's some technical aspects in the design that it's more than just putting concrete in a shape. There's some expertise behind that.
And would it be fair to say that concrete would be purchased locally, most likely?
Correct. And I would envision that they're probably going to try to utilize as much local people as they can. But when you're doing rounded bowl concrete, my experience, there's not a whole lot of pool contractors that can do that work locally. Usually you're getting somebody out of Lincoln or Denver to build a concrete swimming pool. And this would be a comparable type of construction effort. So usually the best thing is to use as much local people as you can for cost, not having to stay overnight, pay for rooms. But you also have to have the expertise to do the work, and whether that's available or not, I guess we'll find out as we go along.
Thank you, Brent. Anybody have any questions for Brent while he's here?
Mr. Mayor,
Ed?
Brent, is one of the priorities for site selection to be on a property that the city already owns?
That's where I guess we've been, I might defer to Mayor or to Lane, but that's all we've been looking at this particular point.
Okay, thank you.
Adding the cost of property acquisition, probably this is not a really good time to try to do something like that. So that's most likely what would occur.
Okay, thank you.
Just a comment. Spawn Ranch has a relationship with Olson out of Lincoln. They've done a lot of projects in Omaha, Lincoln, and some other areas. So I would assume they would use them for the construction. But so.
And would be engineers that would help with the drainage, slopes, things like that, and around the features that people might use that are not in the park itself per se, but maybe around the park. So yeah, correct. And one part, when we looked at, all of the applicants had Nebraska references for projects. So they're familiar with the Nebraska and how we are. So.
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Lucas?
Mr. Lowe's comments, what's interesting is when I first saw these proposals, I thought, oh, here we go. We got a firm from California. In my business, we don't like to deal with firms from California, because they like to pass laws for themselves that protect them and their residents in a different ways, where a handshake and a contract don't mean what they do in Nebraska. And so that caught my attention. And so one question that I had was, would you be able to write Nebraska laws, the venue of law for something like this in the contracts? Would that be typical for this?
That's always something that I look for in any contract that the city has. So that would definitely be the preference. Yes.
And so thinking about that, I requested a copy of the proposals, and I talked with Mr. Garrick a little bit today. And I was really pleased to see that Spawn Ranch, I did like a lot of their designs in that. I appreciated, Brad shared some comments with me from the selection, but it looked like they recently helped the city of Norfolk, is that right, with the project? And the reviews that are out there in the news and the comments are very, very positive on that project and that process. So despite them being from the West Coast, they have recently completed a project, I think, in the Norfolk area. So with that and the ability to work under Nebraska law, I feel comfortable, despite what caught my attention to, Mr. Lowe.
Other questions or comments for Brent? Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to make a comment? Okay. Questions, council? Calling the question on item number 2, please. Item number 2 is passed. Item number 3, award the contract to partially replace the roof at the Public Safety Building to Weathercraft Companies in the amount of $77,011 and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents.
Mr. Mayor, I move to award the contract to partially replace the roof of the public safety building to Weathercraft Companies in the amount of $77,011, and for the mayor to sign all necessary documents.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Garrick. Any discussion on item number 3? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 3, please. Item number 3 is passed. Item number 4, approve EMS telehealth pilot program agreement between Avel eCare LLC, a South Dakota LLC, and North Platte Fire Department.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign EMS telemedicine agreement.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Flanders. Chief, would you give us a little blurb on what we were talking about doing here, please, for the sake of the public interest?
Mr. Mayor, Council, Dennis Thompson, Fire Chief. So back in 2022, state of South Dakota put a program into place to provide telehealth medicine. Much like Nebraska, a lot of rural areas out there, long ways between picking somebody up and getting them to a hospital. And we're experiencing that across the country. So they did a proposal and got together with this Avel eCare. Avel eCare has gone through a stringent process. In fact, they've received the Joint Commission of Standards Gold Standard for hospital type services. That's quite an undertaking. There's 258 standards that have to be met, and they were able to do that. South Dakota has seen a great improvement in delivery of healthcare in their area. So the state of Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services approached North Platte Fire and several others in the state to see if we would be interested in being a part of this pilot program. And it is our belief, and in visiting with our medical director, and we with discussions with Dr. James Smith from the hospital here, believe this is a program worthy of participating in. This first year is our intention is to do a 1 year, because the state pays for that pilot program the first year. Subsequent years, we would be responsible for, and it's pretty expensive. But we think this first year would benefit to have some input from rural Nebraska into the program, what it can offer, these small departments in particular that are so far out there that we're intercepting with. In no way does this take away local medical direction. We still maintain that. But we think this is a great opportunity to have a voice in this. And quite frankly, it's going to change delivery of emergency medicine in rural Nebraska at a time when we need it. With volunteerism dropping off like it is, we'd like to have some voice in that.
Thank you. Any questions? Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, Chief. We, as you mentioned, a lot of volunteer departments out in this neck of the woods. Oh, I guess there's no woods here, but in this country. Is there any way to kind of come together as an association with some of the closer volunteer fire departments and spread this cost over more than one community and have all of those communities have access to the same service?
Well, in this particular instance, as I say, there's no cost to the city the first year of this program, and that's all we intend to participate in, given approval. Subsequent years would be the big cost. And at this point in time, because of the parameters of the program and how it's set up between Avel Care, eCare, the state of Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, that's really, they were pretty pinpoint on their selection process of who would participate in it and could provide them the most information. Most of our rural departments around us that we have agreements with already to provide advanced level care. Again, a program like this for them is going to be quite an undertaking as well, not just financially, but just personnel wise, having the strength to really run the program well and provide the input that's necessary to see this through to the end. So I think just from the point of staffing, and the fact that we're providing so much, service right now to these small communities with intercepts, not really going to garner a lot of information from those small departments yet. But we can provide that, some of that input just based on our interaction with them.
Okay, thank you.
Ty?
Chief, I'm trying to better understand how this would function. Would this be more directional and consultative to healthcare professionals or EMTs in the field? Or would this be more to the patient themselves?
So, Avel eCare, we would have TV in the back of the unit. It would be a direct, I don't know if you're familiar with just like doctor on demand. You call in, you have a doctor, all of their doctors are emergency board certified. They will interact with the patient in the back of our ambulance and provide just that extra level. If we have questions, or want that extra level of care, they're there to provide that, and they can have, visual of that patient, see what we're seeing, and just verify what we're saying and telling them. So just it's a win-win for the patient and the service.
Okay, so the delivery point of this happens in the technology in the ambulance unit then?
It
right?
does,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
This is the first program in the country, in the United States, that South Dakota undertook. They're this telemedicine in motion, and if you go out, you can go to the Avel's website. There's a lot of good information there about the successes and what they're seeing in this, and it really is. It's where we're headed.
Thank you.
And I was just asking Chief, I would assume that with the patient, that maybe the insurance would cover some of the cost when you perform a service like this, or?
The patient doesn't incur anything more than what they would from our billing process. In no way is this sent out to them. That's just part of what we're offering.
Okay.
Donna?
Thank you. So this is just kind of off the wall thought, I guess. So if this is successful and South Dakota wants to expand on this, are they set up to take on more communities and handle?
Well, so Avel Care is their home is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The corporation that provides this, they have in fact reached out to Nebraska and offered that service to the state of Nebraska. So yeah, they're prepared to, as this program grows, is successful, that they can expand beyond the borders of South Dakota, and yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, you two raise your hands. Mr. Flanders, go ahead.
This is just on a North Platte transport. Is that the way what I'm gathering, or is this?
If North Platte is called to any of the communities around us,
Right.
We have access to this to assist them. We are fortunate in the city of North Platte, for many, many years, our medical direction, most communities, Lincoln, Omaha, anywhere, to do any evasive procedure in the field requires the ambulance service to call in to medical direction at the hospital before they start anything. We have had such great medical direction over the years, and their trust in our providers is such that we don't call the hospital for much of anything unless we have a question. They trust us to provide the level of care that they would receive in the ER until we can get there with them. So yeah, we're probably not going to use it much for our patients in the city of North Platte, but certainly as we make these tiered calls to the rural communities around us, we're getting more and more Thedford, Mullen that we're assisting with calls. Those long transport times, this could be really beneficial, especially if this program proves successful in the state of Nebraska, to those departments down the road that have such long transport times to have this service available to them.
Thank you.
Brad?
Really appreciate you being a part of this and willing to do this, because telehealth has the potential to reduce the cost of care and save lives. And so being a part of the rural community is important, because city telehealth is not the same as rural. So I appreciate you doing this. Do you happen to know what type of technology the communication is? Is it cell phone or satellite? What type is it?
It's cell phone.
It's cell phone?
Yeah.
How's that going to function in like one of our low cell phone
Well,
areas?
it's our hope, and I think we say this has been addressed in South Dakota, but it's our hope that due to some of the technologies we're using right now with our carriers, we're going to have a much better, I guess, connectivity than we have had in the past due to some things we're doing with our cell carriers in our ambulances and hotspots and boosters and things. Certainly, but that's another one of those things that I think we'll garner from this is just how effective is this in those very areas that are hard to get to.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. That's awesome.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Anything else from the council? Seeing none, calling the question on number 4, please. Number 4 is passed. Number 5, accept the lease proposal regarding lease purchase financing with Nebraska Land Bank for 1 Pierce Enforcer 107-foot ASL aerial apparatus for the fire department in the total amount of $1,213,200 and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents.
I move to accept the lease proposal and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents regarding lease purchasing financing with Nebraska Land Bank for 1 Pierce Enforcer 107-foot ASL aerial apparatus for the fire department.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Reeker. Chief, I apologize. I should have asked you to just stay up here for this one. So could you, I think we kind of understand what we're doing with this 107-foot ASL, but give us the quick one version, would you?
I really figured Don would be up here explaining this, but so, Mr. Mayor, Council, we back in September 6th of 2022, you approved the mayor signing documents to purchase this 107-foot aerial ladder that was at the time was due for replacement, and this couldn't have been more timely. We signed those documents, and again, timing is everything. We signed those papers, or the mayor signed those papers with your approval. We purchased that truck for $1.2 million. It was delivery time was a little further out than what we are now, but due to some supply chain improvements and just some processes improvements at the plant, we got bumped up quite a little bit, and here we are today. We've gone out and inspected this truck. It's in Omaha now, getting us inspection there, and we'll have it here in the city within the next couple of weeks. But that truck today is worth over $2 million. So that's what we have seen, like construction and everything, the prices. We were fortunate that we did what we did at the time. The truck that this replaces out of our fire station out on West 2nd Street will be sold then on the city's public auction. So we'll hopefully get some money out of that. I don't know how much. There's just no trade-in or anything on that. We discussed that a long time ago, but we'll get some money back on that. But this truck will then serve the entire city, but in particular that west end of town. It'll be the first engine and aerial out that way. So my thanks to you for taking this when we did in 2022 and moving forward with it, because it's paid big dividends for us.
Any questions for the chief? Mr. Lucas?
Yeah, may I just request to remove myself from the voting on this due to the potential for conflict of interest?
Okay, let the record show Mr. Lucas will not be voting on this item. Ed?
Yeah, Chief, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I'm not mistaken, this truck is made in Pierce, Nebraska. Is that correct?
No, the truck itself is made in Appleton, Wisconsin, by Pierce Corporation. McQueen, the vendor for it, is a Nebraska company, and out of Omaha. They've got a site there. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Thanks, Chief. Seeing none, calling the question on item number 5, please. Item number 5 is passed. Item number 6, consider action on extending a non-conforming use on property located at 2803 and 2803 and a half West 6th Street, described as Lot 65, Swenson's second subdivision.
Mr. Mayor, I move to allow extension of the non-conforming use for the mobile homes pursuant to City Code of Ordinances, Section 156.375 A and B, with the conditions that located at 2803 and 2803 and a half West 6th Street.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Lucas. Judy, I think this one's yours.
Mayor, council. So what you have before you is a request to extend a non-conforming use. So several years ago, we passed regulations to get rid of what we called the R4 zoning. R4 zoning allowed for individual mobile homes to be on individual lots. Since then, we have changed it where mobile homes are required to be in mobile home parks and not on single lots unless they are existing, what we call non-conforming uses. In this case, we're talking about 2 lots, one that has a residential structure on it and the other one that has 2 mobile homes on it. What the applicant was wanting to do is take those 2 lots, combine them, or reconfigure them into 3 lots, leave the residential home on 1 lot, and then create 2 new lots, one for each of the mobile homes. The existing mobile homes that you see in those pictures, I believe one of them would be removed and demolished with a new one moved in, and the other one I think would be rehabbed. But the only way to do that is an extension of that conditional use. And the regulations state that the only way to extend that conditional use is with approval from the city council. So that's why you see it in front of you. The applicant is in the audience if you have any additional questions. And the motion that I gave you as a sample motion did allow for you to put some additional conditions on there. So you might want to talk with the attorney to see what appropriate conditions would be, but that does give council some added assurances of what would maybe happen to those mobile homes in the future. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or again, the applicant is in the audience if you have questions for her.
Judy, would you describe the type of housing structures that are generally around this area?
So in this particular area of town, there are existing single lots with mobile homes. I believe there's a mobile home park to the south, but there are some mobile homes in that area. So this isn't like you would be moving, you know, some uses that aren't typical in that area.
Thank you. Question, Mr. Lucas.
So Judy, are they looking to subdivide this from 1 to 3?
Yes, there's 2 existing lots now.
Okay.
So what she had wanted to do when she proposed was to leave the stick-built structure on its own lot and then make 2 separate lots, one for each new or rehabbed mobile home.
Is that so those can be sold separately, or is it a reason for services, or what's the advantage of the subdivision in that?
I would prefer that you ask the applicant that. I'm not sure if she's going to retain all of those lots or if she is wanting to sell those lots.
Okay.
It seemed rude to refer to you as applicant.
Yeah.
So, Please tell us your name and your address.
Marla Cadena, 903 East 6th.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand the reason to divide, and I don't mean that I'm against the idea, I just want to understand the reasons for dividing it into 3 individual lots.
Because it's big enough to do so. It's kind of a lot of wasted space. There's a tiny little house. There's a lot of land in between the two. So it would just make sense. Plus I work with housing and there's not a lot of affordable housing out there. So it would just be a nice opportunity to make that area a little better. They would be nice homes. I mean, all 3 would look way better than they do now, and they would be functional.
And so then, maybe the question for either one of you, so you could sell those individually then, right?
At that point, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Reeker?
Judy, if this was not subdivided, would she be able to put 2 homes on one property?
So if she doesn't reconfigure the lots, she has 2 existing lots. She would be able to leave the stick-built home on its lot by itself. And then she would only be able to replace 1 mobile home on that other lot.
So in other words, for her to maximize the area that she has, and it appears that she's got sufficient area to put 2 homes on there plus the stick-built home, this will accommodate that. Whereas if we don't subdivide it, she would only be able to have 1
That is correct.
mobile home on the property.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
But if we extend, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
If we extend the conditional use permit as proposed, couldn't they do in the future what they're doing today?
So what we talked about a little bit, right now there's currently 2 mobile homes on there. One I don't think is livable. So, I mean, I guess you could look at it both ways. You could look at it and say, okay, we're not going to let her subdivide. We're going to let her put 2 mobile homes on that 1 lot. I'm not sure that would be the best practice because our regulations for single family homes is 1 per lot. So, I mean, you could do that. This is your guys' decision because it is an extension of the non-conforming use. Right now, you have 2 mobile homes on 1 lot, which is a non-conforming use. So you could say, we're going to allow you to put 2 mobile homes on that 1 lot. Or the other situation, which is what she would prefer, is to go ahead and allow her to split that lot and put 2 mobile homes, 1 on each lot. So, I mean, that is entirely your decision. And that's why I told her before we did any subdividing was to see, what you guys were going to allow her to do with that extension of that conditional use or non-conforming use, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, so if we leave it as 1 lot, how do we handle utilities? I mean, can we have 2 sewer connections on 1 lot? Can we have 2 water connections on 1 lot? I don't know how that would work.
Yes, you can.
We could.
We can do that.
She could.
Yeah. It's preferred to have 1 per lot, but yes, it's done. So yes, it's not against regulations to do it that way.
Oh, go ahead, Donna, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. So the size of these lots that she wants to are they individually, will they be big enough for a stick-built house ever? I mean, if someone wanted to just buy a lot, move the trailer off and put up a stick-built house?
Yes, we would make sure of that when we did the subdivision, that each of the lots would be able to be buildable. There are lots in the city of North Platte that are about 40-foot wide that do have stick-built homes on them. So it is very doable at 40-foot wide. I wouldn't recommend that. I would go to at least 44. But yes, it is doable.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
I think it'd be foolish not to subdivide it into 3 lots. I mean, in the I have this problem with a couple houses on a lot. I'd like to sell one, but I can't. And in the future, you don't know what's going to happen, and it would just make it cleaner and easier if you want to sell them. I think that's the way it should go.
And the biggest question here, I mean, the subdivision can happen without your approval. It's the using of the mobile homes, which is the biggest question. We can subdivide it into 3 lots. That's not going to be an issue. That will meet code. The question, the biggest question here is, will you allow her to go back with 2 mobile homes, 1 on each lot?
Ed?
Well, it would seem to me that, and I didn't go to the site, but with the wonders of the computer and Google Earth, I was able to look at it from the top down. And that is a pretty good sized area out there. And it was obvious from Google Earth that there are multiple mobile homes in that area. So it would not be an exceptional use to have those mobile homes remain in that part of town. And I agree with Mark. It would just make sense to subdivide it and then she can rent them out as 2 individual properties and go down that road that way.
Brad?
I was going to make the same point. I did drive past the site, and there's mobile homes all over in that area. So I think it's going to fit the use and fit the tone of the neighborhood. So I don't see any problem with this.
Mr. Lucas?
We knew that we were going to have some of these, and this has been the first one. So a lot of these questions I'm asking you are philosophical to the whole process, not to this specific. I was also by the site and think this is a great improvement. So I'm very positive about what they want to do. But as we think about how we're going to handle these types of requests, do you have any recommendations on, should we be considering like a maximum age of mobile homes to be placed on? I mean, we already have codes with mobile homes. I would assume they would apply, or do we need to make it clear that they apply? Should we be considering an age barrier or something of that nature, or what?
So in that section that I quoted on here, that was section 156-375, it does have the criteria for mobile homes that says that they do have to be pitched roof. They have to meet certain criteria that the building inspectors will take a look at. My preference, I would prefer they be brand new mobile homes that are brought in there, but that's not always feasible. So as long as they can meet the criteria with the pitched roof, make sure the underbelly's intact, windows, doors, all of those types of things that meet minimum standards, I think you're going to be okay with that.
And that would be applicable with nothing else added to what's been proposed or what's been motioned, right?
That's the way I read it, is that.
Yeah, that's how I understood the motion that was made. It included that code section that Judy referenced, which pertains to the regulations for mobile homes. If there were other conditions that the council had added in talking with Judy through this, some of the things that we had considered was maybe, at some point this could expire if you wanted to tie it into, say, like the lifespan of a mobile home, something along those lines, or tie it to ownership. Like if a new owner came in, you could have them come back in to get approval from the council for the non-conforming use again. So those are the types of things that you could consider. There's nothing in the code section that requires you to do that. It's something that is possible should you choose to do something like that. But so far as the motion that was made by Councilman Reeker, it does contain the provision that references the mobile code provisions.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, it would seem like if we tie our non-conforming use, is there a time limit on this or not? Okay.
Not as the motion has been read. No, there's no time limit on it.
So it would seem to me if we put a time limit on this and you wanted to sell one lot off to somebody else, that would really hamper any kind of sale, because the proposed purchaser may not know if he can even leave the house there. So I think that wouldn't be a very good idea personally. And regarding the houses themselves, I understand that we want them in good condition, and I wouldn't think anything else. But I also believe I read in there that you folks have some pretty good handyman capabilities. Well, maybe handy woman. And I don't think we want to limit ourselves, write things so strict that these people aren't able to bring a home in that may need some repairs. And by looking at the pictures, I don't know what these homes looked like before, but they don't look like anything wrong with them here. So I don't think we want to put any kind of restriction on her, except I think there is something that we have to have a HUD code that we have to meet, which that should be pretty easily done today because that's fairly old code, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe it's 1974.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Chances are any homes that predate 1974 probably are not going to be very serviceable.
that's true.
So,
Very few.
thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 6, please. Item number 6 is passed. Item number 7, refer the extremely blighted determination study for North Platte, Nebraska, March 2024, as prepared by Information Art to the City of North Platte Planning Commission for a public hearing to determine if the proposed area qualifies as extreme blight.
I move to refer the extremely blighted determination study from the North Platte, Nebraska, March 2024, as prepared by Information Art to the City of North Platte Planning Commission for a public hearing to determine if the proposed area qualifies as extreme blight.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Lucas. Any discussion on item number 7? Ed?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have some concerns about this. This will be the second one we've done now in a very short period of time, if we approve it. And is this going to be the standard mode of action now that we go to extreme blight just because the economics don't appear to work on the surface? This does concern me that we're looking at another one right away. I still have real concerns about whether it's extremely blighted or blighted. Giving up that incremental tax increase to the developer and not allowing that to go to the various taxing entities, because as I've mentioned many times, and not to bore you, but the cost to the city still goes on, whether those costs whether the increased tax revenue is deferred back to the city or it goes back to, not deferred. If the increased tax revenue goes to the taxing entities, or if it goes back to the developer, the city's costs are going to go on and they have to be paid. And so I am concerned about this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
I want to make sure I've got my facts right. In an extremely blighted area, as long as you're building homes, do you automatically qualify then for the workforce housing benefits where you will actually get paid for part of the building of the structure itself?
There's some other restrictions. I'll have Judy iterate them here.
Mayor, council, I would never say that you automatically qualify for anything. This again is tonight is just a referral. Go to Planning Commission for a public hearing, come back to you for a public hearing. And then at that point, you go into the ask for tax increment financing, go through a redevelopment plan process. During that process, you can approve it or deny it through any of the processes when it comes out. What they look for with an extreme blight is focused on workforce housing. If you're not going to meet the workforce housing standards and build workforce housing, then it would not apply. If you are going to look at the workforce housing model and try to do that, then it is possible that some of those costs can be what they call the upward build. Use it for the cost of the actual construction. With this particular project, there is going to be a lot of infrastructure work, because right now there are overhead power lines in that whole block area that would have to be underground power lines and moving of probably some water and sewer lines, depending on how they do that project. So they may or may not end up having the expenses for the upward build.
Why do the power lines have to be buried in this one?
Um,
I mean, I think it's a good idea. I wish they were all buried underground, but is this what's coming with any blighted areas that has to be done, or? Go ahead.
Not necessarily. Maybe if Brent's still here, would you have an idea as to why? I know that we've looked at this internally. I'm not an electrician, so, but I think it's just a better option to do it.
Mayor, council, what we've talked about generically on pretty a high level, because there isn't plans yet, but where they're located at might impact their site layout, because part of their area they're looking at is underground, part of it is not. So depending on how they want to do the configuration of their development, it might hinder how they do some of the work. So that is why they were looking at having all of it put underground, and then you don't have poles and lines in the way of above ground, either your parking, your driveways, things like that, or the buildings itself.
So it's a site-specific
Correct.
reason?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, both.
Thanks.
Thank you, Judy. Unless anyone else has a question for Judy before she sits down.
I do.
Oh, sorry, Brad. Okay, go ahead.
So this is a TIF project. Why isn't this being considered for a micro TIF? What's the reason between the?
Because with micro-TIF, it's less dollar amount. This is going to be
Oh,
much
okay.
more than the 1.5 million.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have a Judy question? A question for Judy, excuse me. Thank you, Judy. Other questions or comments on item number 7? Calling the question on item number 7, please. Item number 7 is passed. Now we have a public hearing for item number 8, which is to adopt a resolution regarding the City of North Platte, Nebraska micro-TIF blight and substandard study as prepared by the City of North Platte and approval of related actions. This is a public hearing on the subject I just read. I'm opening the public hearing officially. If you'd like to make a comment, please approach the microphone, tell us who you are, where you live, and we will listen to your comment.
Gary Pearson, President, North Platte Area Chamber Development Corporation, 502 South Dewey. Mayor and City Council, I think this is probably the appropriate agenda item for me to kind of address this, but having sit through this process and the information that came forward at the Planning Commission a week ago, it's a couple things. I think North Platte was always meant to be a leader in the micro-TIF. This goes back to Senator Mike Groney's vision moving forward through the legislative process with the state of Nebraska. And as it was forwarded on to the communities, it became apparent there were some things within the law, like a lot of new laws, that made it kind of cumbersome to work with, and certainly created some financing issues for potential developers. So went back to the drawing board, and Senator Mike Jacobson, another North Platte senator, offered amendments that really did perfect the process. And then when that became law, it allowed communities to then embrace the opportunities that this presented. And we've seen that unfold after the last several months. Having seen what the city staff has now went through on just one individual project when it comes to micro-TIF, and you're talking about a lot of time spent by Judy and Brent and Bill and Lane trying to maneuver through this process, I think it would behoove the city to look at doing one major study in kind of extreme blight areas. And then that way the city staff wouldn't have to do this each and every project that comes forward. Certainly, the chamber's certainly supportive of this particular project. I think what you're going to hear later on is a presentation on a project that has a chance to be what we consider the poster project of micro-TIF for North Platte. I think it'll be very significant. It also drives home the point that these projects are all infused of new capital into very challenged areas of North Platte. These are areas that have 60, 70, 100-year-old buildings. They haven't seen a lot of capital infusion for a long time. And now we have an opportunity to do that. And by having projects that work, and you could point those examples and bring that new infusion of energy to those rather than sit there vacant for who knows how much longer and deteriorating and the value continuing to go down. And this creates new tax value eventually, but it embraces and invites developers to come forward. I really want to thank the developer that is bringing the projects forward tonight. And it's because you've embraced some of these development projects. And the word's out that North Platte has done that. And so you're seeing the results of what happens when you embrace growth and you embrace development tools like TIF and micro TIF. I just want to offer you, just in conclusion, just a few quick statistics. In 2013, a decade ago, where I think we were coming off of, North Platte was coming off of several what I'd call stable but stagnant decades with little growth. The community, the city of North Platte had a $1.3 billion total valuation in the city. Now that you've embraced a lot of these development tools as we move forward the last decade, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, the 2023 certified valuation for the city is almost $1.9 billion. That's a growth of $591 million in that short timeline, or 31% of your total valuation. That's 1/3 of all the valuation in the city of North Platte being created in the last decade. So what's happened to the city property tax rate in that same timeline? 2013, it was over 58 cents per $100 of value. 2023, you certified the tax rate as 47 cents and change. That near 11-cent decline represented an 18% total reduction in the property tax rate for the city of North Platte. That would not have happened had you not embraced growth, the projects that have come along, and the development tools that help facilitate them and make them happen. And that doesn't even touch what's happened with the sales tax revenue because of this infusion of capital, projects, and construction activity going on. So when you embrace growth, good things happen. When you embrace development tools, good things happen.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make a comment? 10 seconds. No one appears to be moving in the audience.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, was that you, Ed, that second?
Yes.
Yes. Second by Reeker to close the public hearing. Calling the question and closing the public hearing, please. Public hearing is closed. Did I miss anyone that wanted to say anything? I didn't see anybody move, but I looked down. Okay, we're good. All right, council will now consider item number 8, adopt resolution regarding the City of North Platte, Nebraska microTIF blight and substandard study as prepared by the City of North Platte and approval of related actions.
I move to adopt resolution as presented in council materials regarding the City of North Platte, Nebraska microTIF blight and substandard study as prepared by the City of North Platte and approval of related actions.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Flanders. Any discussion on item number 8, please? Mr. Lucas?
I'd just like to commend the city staff for their work on this. I thought they did a fantastic job of putting this together. You're probably the first ones in the state doing this as a city, so I thought you did a nice job. Thank you.
Donna?
Thank you. And on that same line, I did not realize our city employees department could even do this. I mean, how does that work? I thought private enterprise was supposed to apply for others.
For micro, go ahead.
With micro TIF, you know, those studies are normally $20,000. With micro TIF, because it's such a smaller scale, it was determined that basically we needed to find a process to be able to do micro TIF if it's not in a blighted area on a city staff level, and we have the talent, in Judy's department that we were able to do that. So, I mean, a lot of kudos to them for looking into it and with Bill and Bill's guidance how to do that. So that's why it was done this way, because on a microtip project, you know, it's so much smaller than a large project that no one will be able to do it at that rate of what the private sector would charge for it.
Okay. Seems like a conflict.
Go ahead.
Donna, I spent some time visiting with Senator Groney at the time that this had original implementation, because the Nebraska Bankers Association played a role in trying to help with some of the documentation. And I know in talking to Senator Jacobson about it too, the idea from day one was to make this easy and under local control, to where somebody doing a smaller project would have the same opportunities that somebody developing a millions of dollars project could, that can afford the attorney work and can afford all the expensive studies and all that. So as much as we're the first ones venturing into this, and it seems out of our normal course of business, I feel like when the legislation was made and went to the voters, that the intent was for this process to work like they have. So I'm really pleased that we're one of the first ones in the states doing this, because I think that was the idea. I can't speak for Senator Jacobson and Groney here today, but I think the idea was that somebody with a smaller project who could maybe afford a certain amount of legal work and a certain amount of engineering, but couldn't afford the thousands of dollars that a big TIF project takes, would have that same opportunity economically.
I guess I was,
I just want to comment, anybody's familiar with this property, if this isn't a blighted substandard, I don't know what is. And if we don't do something about this, it's really, I mean, there are people going in there and sleeping, I mean, vagrancy, stuff, pipes being taken out of there, probably selling for drugs. It needs to be cleaned up. We got to do something. And you want to sit there and watch that property, people next to it, as it deteriorates, it can't really get much worse. So this is an avenue and it needs to get done.
Ed?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just a question on the mechanics of the study here. Is this a canned format, or is it something that you folks have put together?
No, this was really something, to Judy's credit, that Judy pretty much did on her own. Legally, there's no standardized form that's required. There are legal requirements that must be met in order for the study to be approved, things that are referenced within there. But you'll note one of the things that we decided to do to take some of the burden off of city staff with these type of micro, I call them kind of a micro blight project, was to incorporate the application that we have for microTIF that city staff has also developed. And so you'll note that microTIF application touches on all of the areas that are required to be included in a study. But it's still a very cumbersome task. So to Mr. Pearson's point, it's a lot of work for the city to put together these micro blight studies. And so, it does show us that it makes it much easier to identify projects in already blighted and substandard areas. But this is, to Councilman Lucas's point, this is something that is authorized under the statute. We have to have it. What I told Judy throughout the process was we have to have a study. We have to hit these certain points, and it has to touch on these required aspects. And so that's what the study is that's in front of you.
And I kind of remember exactly what Ty was talking about, that there were provisions to be able to do this type of a study so that the costs wouldn't be so great to the redeveloper. So on I guess I don't see a page number here, but when you make these determinations, are these subjective or objective determinations? And the reason I'm asking the question is, I'm sorry, page 115, there is a number down there. it would seem like when I hear the word feel, it's more of an subjective determination rather than a subjective determination. And I would hope that these determinations are based on real life situations and not an emotional response. And that may be just an issue of semantics, but it would seem like that the way it is worded, that it's more of a subjective evaluation.
You're aware that one of these buildings nearly burnt down, right?
No, and I understand that, Mr. Mayor. I guess if it is in fact an objective determination, and it appears that certainly some of it is very objective determination, then select all that you believe apply as opposed to feel. So it becomes a real determination from an objective standpoint, and that's my only comment.
Okay.
I guess if I may, on that page you referred to, Mr. Reeker, that is the applicant's form that they fill out. And so, I mean, maybe they're, instead of feel, it should be believed, but they have to basically, be on the assumption that these are being met, that they're determining that. And then when the city staff then does their study, goes into a little more detail, and we believe also that those are being met, if that helps. I mean, maybe feel is not the right word, maybe it's believed that these are, but
Just to comment on the process.
Mayor Keller, if I may interject, I think you just take out the words "you feel," select all that apply to the study area. Period.
Exactly.
That clarifies it, and to me, it's an objective standard, no question about it.
And to Councilman Lucas, we're pioneering this, so to speak, with North Platte, and so this is,
No, that's
we're
fine.
learning
That's
as we go
exactly
along.
why I mentioned it. I'm not trying to cast
I'm
aspersions
not
on
being critical
anybody.
either. I'm just-
Well, for version 2, we will remove a couple words, try to make it better
Thank you.
or more precise, I guess. Anyone else have a question or a comment? Donna?
So do we know what the plan is for this? Is it for housing or?
Do we have the developer here? Okay, whichever one of you gentlemen would like to speak, or both of you, that's fine too.
I'm Elijah Erday, 5516 Corby Street, Corby, in Omaha, Nebraska. They are meant for residential use. They're meant for, the rents would be something along the lines of $650 a unit, including utilities. And all of the units are intended for that, with the exception of that storefront at the very front, in which we have pretty much no plans set for that right now.
Thank you.
Other questions for the developer while we have him? Mr. Lucas?
Yeah, this will save the question for the next item. How many housing units are there, and rough mix on like 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, that type of thing?
The
Estimates are fine.
Oh yeah, estimated 9 are 2 bed, 1 bath, still 400 square foot, and then 41 are 400 square foot, also that are 1 bed, 1 bath.
Thank you.
Brad?
So you're going to retain ownership and then rent these out is what your plan is?
That is correct.
Gotcha.
And I'm a majority owner. The intent is to hold on to it with a local management company handling it for us after we get it renovated.
I commend you guys. This is a heck of a project. So thank you for doing this.
Yes.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Would you generally describe your renovations? You don't need to go into super detail, but roughly what are you doing?
Oh, for this particular project, it's really just unit by unit. Obviously where the fire was, we have that down to studs right now, and I've already had Dave, the building inspector, come through to kind of look at it with me. So we have an idea as far as a small idea as to rebuild there. Some of the units have extensive water damage. Some have, the amount of roaches and mice in some of them have just kind of made it impossible to definitely live in. With the messes and everything, it really is just unit by unit, cleaning it out and repairing.
So generally speaking, it'd be fair to say that you'll tear out what needs to be torn out and replace it accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Donna?
Okay, thank you. So 400 square feet per unit?
Per
Is
unit.
that what I heard you say? So is this going to be like almost like short term? 400
Well-
square feet's not very.
I myself have lived in a 400 square foot unit in an up down duplex that I used to own years ago, and I lived in that for about 6 years very comfortably myself. It's not meant for a family situation,
Okay.
but an individual, absolutely, it's plenty of space.
I recommend what you're doing. I don't know if I can support it, but just because of the tax 20 years out. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Mark, or Ed, sorry. I
Mr.
looked at
Mayor,
Mark and
thank
said, yeah.
In this type of a major remodel situation, do you have to comply with ADA requirements in this type of a facility?
Well, we're not planning on having it, we thought about doing the senior living facility, but there's a lot of stairs on pretty much all the units, with the exception of a smaller, one of the smallest units that's a triplex that only has like 2 steps up. So I'm not aware that we have to work with any ADA at this point, at least.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lucas.
Yeah, if it's okay, I wanted to run through a little bit of the bond math. That's a little more towards the next item, but do you care if we do it now while we're all talking about this?
We're all for expediency.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I like some of the math stuff. So I want to see if I have my head around this the right way. If I tried to just guess what kind of tax increment might flow to you on this project to try to compare it to some of the bigger projects that we've done with new construction and different things. So the tax assessment, you're estimating that will be about 1.1 after completion, is that right?
Truth be told, I'm the contractor, the brothers that are partners,
Okay.
and my brother Jacob would be a better person to answer for that one. If that's what he put down, then I would trust it.
Okay. Well, I just ran some kind of napkin math, and if that went up a couple percent every year over that 15 years, it looked to me like there'd be somewhere around $230,000 to $250,000 worth of tax increment that we're not getting today, taxes we aren't getting today that would be rebated to them. If you take that and you take the last TIF bond that we've approved and use the same interest rate and you made it a apples to apples bond, I was guesstimating that was around $130,000 bond. And so at $50,000 a unit, or I'm sorry, at 50 units roughly, that's about $2,700, $2,800 per unit in today's dollars that we're incrementing. I realize these units are smaller and they're not new, they're existing, but they meet a rent segment that we don't have much inventory of. And when I look at that $2,800 per unit incentive into dollars and $250,000 long-term contribution, today that's, if they spend $650, which we all know that projects always seem to cost more to renovate than you plan. If you use today's dollars and we're around $125,000 of tax rebate versus if they end up spending, let's say $650,000 to $800,000, I think there's a little better balance in this program than some of the new bigger ones. Now, again, they're not new units and their economic life's going to be lower than what brand new units would be, but I think this project illustrates that there's really some good economics in this micro TIF program. So,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mark.
I'm a little confused on the figures. In the material here, this back section you're going to start on first, the north side, it will be 16 units.
That back one will be 16 units, correct? Yeah.
So are the figures tie with siding? Is that for the whole project? I assumed it was just for these 16 that you're doing.
It's for the whole project.
For the whole project, okay.
Of all the living spaces, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Thank you very much for answering our questions. Mr. Van Velsen, do you have something?
Mr. Mayor and Council, if I could just add a couple of different things. One, as Gary pointed out earlier, this is a new thing for all of us. TIF was not my favorite thing when it came out either. The whole idea of somebody not paying their taxes to be able to build until these guys came along. North Platte Complex called me up, said, hey, help us get through this. They pushed me to kind of help push the city staff, particularly Mr. Trzynski and Judy, and I'd thank them both, to get us to a point that we could do a micro-TIF project like this, to get us to a point that developers like this could take something like the property that we are discussing today from a home for bugs and mice to home for the workers that we know are going to be coming in. We've got sustainable beef coming. This is right on 4th Street where they'd be able to take that straight out to Bicentennial and be to work in 5 minutes. I mean, these guys are extremely smart in where they're placing it, where they're putting their efforts, and I think the city would be greatly benefited by placing its trust in them, by allowing them this benefit that's provided by the legislature and now provided by the city to be able to come in, provide those housing units for this workforce, so that those tax dollars that might be being invested in this could come back to you tenfold in the amount that's being spent. If you think about 50 units, that's 50 different city hookups for electricity, for water, for all of these different things, for trash that everybody pays their monthly fee for just to have the access, right? All of those things combined, plus their spending on sales tax revenue, this provides a huge boost to the city, not only to take away something that is not great to look at when you're driving through Taco John's or you're sitting over at Merrick's or you're just driving through that part of town, to make it into something nice, but also then to provide actual livable housing to something that is substandard. It is blighted. You look through the checklist that they provided in their application, and it hits everything to a T. As far as expediency, Mr. Mayor, the buildings that they're working on, just to clarify for the council for this and for the next one, is all of the residences. I know that it's been brought up to Mr. Erday and myself that in order to qualify for these fundings, you have to be at least 60 years old. There's a building on there that was 1982 if you look at the assessor's website. Their plan is to get this, the residential stuff that is all 60 years old plus done with the micro TIF, and then do work on that front office after they've got it completed with their TIF funding that they would receive from this. So they've dotted their I's, they've crossed their T's, they know that they're not going to be going across any bounds. So in case that was a concern of anybody on the council as we move forward with this, I just wanted to address that as well.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Ed?
I have a question actually for Ty, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
What did you estimate that the incremental tax increase would be over the life of the?
Well, here's what I've got. And again, this is my math. Okay?
I understand.
I didn't call them and talk to them.
You do
about it.
math better than I do.
Okay, so I took that the base tax assessment value today is about 328,000 according to the sheet and according to the application. I assume by the end of this year that maybe it'd be 750. I just guessed. And then I took it to 1.1 from there, which was the close to the math that they provided in for the increment in the application. I think that was the number in the application.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went every 3 years, I kept it level, and every 3 years I jumped it by 55,000, which is about 5% of the original, because our tax cycle tends to look at property in about a 3-year cycle. I kept the levy the same in this at 0.19. Now, I know all of us are going to keep pushing that down, so that would make this heavier. But this assumes a 0.19 levy, which would be really similar to what's in that area today. And so if you take that increment over the 15 years, it under those assumptions, it came up to $240,606.
That would be the actual incremental.
That's the
tax
actual cash
increase.
flow rebate projection back to them. And then I did a net present value over that 15 years at 8% to make it similar to what a regular TIF bond, because this is a 0% note, but I wanted to compare it to what a TIF bond, a non-micro TIF, a regular TIF bond is, because those have an interest rate. And I think the last one we did was somewhere around 8 or 9%. So I used 8, and that made the present value $131,036. which means if this bond was struck using that same math, but used with an interest rate like our CRA is typically done with our regular bonds, then the bond amount on this would be projected at 131,000. So those were just my estimates.
And that would be over a 15-year period of time.
Yeah, but the cash flow over 15 years was projected at 240 in 240,606 in rebates, which means that because those are 0% notes, the micro TIF, so which means that the rebate I just projected started at 8,000 and then it jumped to 14,600 a year, then up at the end to about 18,800. And so it totaled 240,000. But I was trying to get an apples to apples compared to a new TIF project. And so what that means is if we wrote an 8% bond today, that bond amount would be 131,000, meaning that there'd be about 131,000 in bond principal, and then the difference, the 110,000, would be interest on the bond over that 15 years. So, for example, somebody would have to prove up 131,000 worth of eligible costs on a regular bond today. I was just trying to compare kind of the TIF per unit or TIF per square foot, that type of thing, compared to regular TIF. I need to find some better hobbies, huh? They start watching Jimmy Fallon instead of working on this. But,
Well, I wouldn't know about Jimmy Fallon. I don't know whether he can add or not, but
yeah. So that's what I was looking at.
so your increment was 268,000 over the life of the taxes over that period of time would be $268,000 increase.
I had 240,606 was just my estimate. Here, you can
Okay, thank you.
pass that to Mr. Reeker if you'd like.
Oh, that's fine, Todd. Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? Thank you, gentlemen. You may be seated. Calling the question on item number 8.
I don't know what to do.
Item number 8 is passed. Item number 9. Adopt a resolution to approve a micro TIF project for North Platte Complex LLC for rehabilitation of a multifamily structure located at 1211 East 4th Street.
I move to adopt a resolution to approve a microTIF project for North Platte Complex LLC for rehabilitation of a multifamily structure located at 1211 East 4th Street.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Lucas. We've just heavily debated this item, but are there any further questions anyone would like to add or comments? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 9, please. Item number 9 is passed. Item number 10, approve the claims.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the claims.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Nisley to approve the claims. Calling the question and approving the claims. Claims are approved.
Mr. Mayor, I
Garrick.
move to enter into closed session for the sole purpose of discussing real estate transactions in order to protect the public's interest.
Motion to enter executive session.
Second.
Second by Flanders. Calling the question, entering executive session. Don't grab the wrong clicker, Ed.
Mine's still going. Well,
What?
I voted.
Otherwise, we'd still be wet.
Kind of have a little bit longer space. If we got our first meeting. Another day next week, you know.
Yeah, all right.
The meeting is so early in May. I don't know. Or excuse me.
April.
I see.
Yeah. We will have,
I thought you meant